Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broadcast Minds, presented by NewTek and streaming live worldwide with Ustream. Available on newtek.com, streamingmedia.com, fullsail.com, and live.twit.tv. Now, please welcome Senior Vice President of Strategic Development at NewTek, Mr. Philip Nelson.
Thank you very much. Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys being here with us tonight at our second Broadcast Minds event. Last year's was such an awesome event. We had such great panelists. We wanted to do it again this year and bring some of the legends of television and webcasting that are really changing business models all over the world. Before we introduce this year's panelists, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome some alumni that are here with us. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Don Sperling from the New York Giants. Don, where are you? He was on our panel last year. Also, in the VIP section, we have Mr. Jeff Jacobs from MTV, one of the first adopters of TriCaster and a real pioneer. Jeff Jacobs, where are you? He's hiding back there. Thanks, Jeff. All right, tonight our moderator for the Broadcast Minds event is the editor-in-chief of streamingmedia.com and onlinevideo.net. He's a journalist who's been covering technology and entertainment for over 20 years. Help me welcome Mr. Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Philip.
You guys are in for a treat because we have a star-studded panel for you guys tonight. I'd like to introduce our first member of the Broadcast Minds panel. He is the godfather of tech broadcasting, founder of Twit, and producer of over 40 hours of live content every week, Mr. Leo Laporte. Thank you, Leo. Our next member of the Broadcast Minds panel is the EVP of Technology and Operations at the NBA. He oversees from IT to broadcast to in-arena and scoring systems. He's the man behind the first ever live sporting event done in 3D. And he's also the architect of and in charge of the team that has implemented the TriCaster for the WNBA and NBA Development League projects, Mr. Steve Helmuth. Thanks, Steve. Our next member of the Broadcast Minds panel is the Senior Associate AD at St. John's University. He oversees 17 sports, and he's leading the College Sports Initiative to get rid of the printed media guides and transition to streaming video so that they can really reach the fans and the students and recruits. Mark Fratto from St. John's. And the most awesome beard on the panel. All right, and our final member of the Broadcast Minds team is a best-selling author, a radio and television personality, and the host of the #1 most downloaded podcast in the world, Mr. Adam Carolla. Thanks, Adam. All right, Eric, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you very much, Philip. You know, this is awesome because this is one of the few crowds, few places where Leo Laporte got slightly more applause than Adam Carolla, which is awesome, which is very cool. And you know what? I'm really excited about this event. You know, as editor of streamingmedia.com, we see a lot of different products. Obviously, we've got, you know, we try to maintain some degree of editorial impartiality, but when there's something that's really freaking cool, it's really freaking cool. And the NewTek TriCaster is pretty freaking cool, right? I mean, it's really part of, and this may sound like a bit of a cliche, but because it's been talked about so much, you know, the democratization of video. You've got people, broadcasters, old media, who are using tools like the TriCaster to reach audiences more directly and more cost-effectively. You've also got new media, people who are doing podcasts, things like Twit TV, who are doing things with the TriCaster that they just wouldn't be able to do otherwise. They can't afford to pull up a $10 million broadcast truck to Leo's cottage. At least I don't think you're making that kind of coin yet.
Not yet.
And of course, you know, the specialty, the NewTek TriCaster specialty is live video online. And if you needed any more proof that live online video has really become mainstream, just look at last week when YouTube announced that they were starting a YouTube Live channel. And so even though, and I think we'll probably talk about this a bit, even though on-demand video viewing numbers are still greater than live viewing numbers, that's changing. And it's because of the technologies like the TriCaster, and there are others out there, but that are allowing people to reach out directly to their fans online. And what I'd like to do is start by asking each one of our panelists a bit about why they chose to go that route, using the TriCaster to reach their audience directly without an old broadcast, old school media intermediary, and talk about the pros and cons of that. So, Leo, with Twit TV, as Philip said, you produce 40 hours of content a week. It goes out online. It's available on the Roku device. It's available on all sorts of platforms. And again, there's no traditional network involved. Why did you decide to go that route, and what are the pros and cons?
Well, I'll be frank, it was really, I just wanted to meet Kiki Stockhammer, and and I did, and I feel fulfilled now. No, we looked, when I first started thinking about doing video, I mean, frankly, originally we were just an audio podcast, and our audience seemed to want more. It started with me and a little webcam pointed at the studio, you know. But as we started to build it out, I kind of got a hankering, having many years as a TV broadcaster, to have a little bit more, to have more angles, more shots, lower thirds, more capabilities, and of course star wipes. So, although I like those tumbling dice wipes too, those are pretty good. So I started looking, and they're really, you know, in my price range, which was pretty little, there was very little I could find that would do what I wanted to do. And we looked at hardware switchers, and then what it finally came down to, there was nothing anywhere close to what the TriCaster, originally I had a TriCaster studio and later a broadcast, could do at that price point. It was just nothing close. And it was, you know, it was my own money. I was writing the check. So it was pretty much a no-brainer. We use it, I think, in ways that NewTek never imagined. It's running 24/7. We do the reruns on it. We'll do the shows on it. We did Don't Shut It Down. We then start running reruns. I mean, that thing runs day in, day out. We really get a lot out of that $10,000 investment, but I've been very happy with it. Yeah.
Now, Steve, the NBA, you're using the TriCaster to capture footage at D-League, Development League games, but you're also doing all sorts of innovative things with that footage. Talk about that a little bit, and talk about, again, what that approach allows you to do that you wouldn't be able to do with traditional broadcast technology.
Yeah, the D-League's the development league of the NBA. In fact, there are 3 playoff games on tonight. So if you want to sample, you know, the quality, you know, from the HD TriCasters, you can. But the idea was that we needed the TriCaster. It was the only device that would really give us everything we needed. Number one, we needed live, right? So we put it right on the table, right next to the radio announcers. We do a live streaming event. In addition, we record 1080i, right, to a SATA drive. The SATA drive comes back to the NBA, goes into our digital media management system, and then is available to the producers at Versus, you know, that do a HD package on Versus, and then becomes available to all the teams to cut highlight packages or to pull up footage as players are called up from the D-League into the NBA. So we have an archive quality HD feed. That's those same recordings on the SATA drives, right, are made available to NBA TV. So every week we actually take a D-League game, recorded in HD, and it's the D-League game of the week. So it gets a broadcast airing as well. So so we're really using the device for everything it's good for. You know, I don't know if you know, there's an editor also in the TriCaster. So from these venues, from these small D-League venues, we don't have, you know, we can't pump HD out of them. So what we do is we have the TriCaster operators stay late that evening, cut a highlight package, voice it, and upload it to our CMS, and then it's on dleague.com and available on nba.com as well. So we're really using the device through its full cycle.
Right. Now, St. John's University is also putting the device to many different uses. And Mark, tell us a little bit about your massive video production department and what they're doing with the TriCaster.
Well, one of the nice things for us about TriCaster is there's many universities and colleges that have major football programs and video departments that go along with it. For us at St. John's, a lot of people know St. John's. We're New York City's basketball team. Lou Carnesecca, top 7 in the NCAA history in all-time basketball victories. Chris Mullen, Mark Jackson, people like that. But we're, there's 17 sports at St. John's, and there's only so many opportunities to get exposure for them in the mainstream media in New York. So what we're able to do is we're able to use a student staff and use our staff of graduate assistants, not a full-time professional video staff, to be able to cut video, to be able to produce more than 100 live sporting events from campus every year. So we're really able to get all the different sports out there, including our men's basketball program, in different ways. But not only that, down to soccer and softball and fencing and tennis as well. Excellent.
Now, Leo, you said you started your show just capturing from your webcam. Adam, when you started doing your podcast, were you also just capturing from a simple webcam? And what made you move up to do something a little more professional looking?
Well, we have a TriCaster, but that piece of shit just gathers dust in the corner. I mean, we don't really. They gave it to me, but I don't. I mean, sometimes I'll set a beer on it, but it's mainly we're involved in the audio side of this, so I don't honestly know what I'm doing up here. We started off as just doing an audio podcast. Well, I mean, I think the goal is to say to the big radio stations, terrestrial or not, or the big television networks, hey man, we're going to do our own thing. Just power to the people. Give the ability back to the people. If you can do something, then you can run your own network. So for us, it was just a logical move when I got let go of my radio job. We started doing a podcast, and then we started thinking, well, wait a minute, there's got to be more to running your own studio than just the radio side of it. So we thought, well, there's a visual side of it, and that's when the TriCaster came in. And now, for us, there's an interesting thing that we haven't quite gotten to yet, but we're looking forward to doing is we have started, when I do live appearances, bringing it out to the club and actually streaming the live show. So it's interesting in that you can take it outside of the studio, and I guess you could broadcast your daughter's soccer game. Not that anyone would watch that shit, but I'm just saying, theoretically, if you were nuts and that good a parent, you could do it. And for us, the next step is bringing the TriCaster to the club, then doing the live show, then essentially doing sort of what's old is new again. The old school, remember when Ali would fight Joe Frazier and they do the closed circuit only at the Milwaukee, whatever, then beaming it back to other clubs who don't have anything going on a Wednesday night, and for a cheap ticket, they would come in and watch us perform at another club up on a big screen.
What about creatively? I talked a little bit about the fact that online video allows you to bypass the traditional intermediaries of traditional broadcast. What does establishing that sort of format allow you to do creatively that you couldn't do on broadcast or you couldn't do on terrestrial radio? Adam, you want to start on that?
Well, I mean, obviously, your voice is not censored by the FCC, and more importantly, by the man or your boss or your program director. I mean, it basically puts the wheel in your hands. Now, you can steer off the road. Believe me, there's enough drainage ditch for all of us to land in between here and LA. But at least you're behind the wheel. At least you're not the person in the passenger seat doing this as you hit the 18-wheeler that's coming the other direction. And so really it's just you get to either float or sink, but at least it's done by your own decisions and by your own ideas, and there's a certain part of that that's satisfying. I mean, ultimately, that's life. But what you don't want is someone else making a bad decision for you and steering you into oncoming traffic.
Yeah, it's so true. Every radio guy I ever met always wanted to own his own radio station. And that's really what that was all about. It wasn't that they wanted the hassle of owning a radio station. They just wanted to be able to do their own thing. You know, doing TV in a real situation involves so many people, camera operators and technical director, tape room, all this stuff. To put it all into that small case and be able to do all, I mean, I run my own board while I'm doing it. I mean, there's something about it that's just so direct that I'm sitting there and I can do the wipes. Sometimes we just have fun and we play with it. You're right, drive off the road sometimes. But it really is a completely satisfying experience.
But also the death of creativity is 15 people weighing in.
Right. No
and in radio, you have a whole bunch of guys weighing in. In television, you have a whole bunch more guys weighing in. And imagine if any work of art, whether it's a symphony, whether it's a painting, whatever it is, if a group of folks stood behind the artist and said, Mickle, I don't think that, you know what, people make her, she should show teeth and let's have some more cleavage and the Mona Lisa, I want to see a D cup on her. And nothing would exist. Artistically, it is death to do almost anything by committee. So again, sink or swim, at least you're the artist. Right. And, people say to me all the time, hey man, I like you, but what about that piece of crap you did, 2 weeks ago on whatever? And I go, I know that wasn't me. I didn't want to do it. The editor did it. I didn't have a choice. The program, those Dancing with the Stars assholes, they'll do what they do, At least, when the dust settles, you can say, this is mine, good or bad, I did it.
Yeah, when we started with the D-League 3 years ago with Philip and New Tech, our idea was just streaming media. It was just broadband. We were thinking, great, this is a way to connect with our audience, right? Because in sports, as in everybody on this panel, we have to fit into people's lives, and media is, and obviously social media is the other way we do it. But with the HD TriCaster, which delivered this year, we said, wow, we really opened up a new frontier for ourselves. Now we're headed for broadcast, because broadcasting, the fans have, a broadcast, experience has a lot wider consideration set. If you have that clicker in your hand, you're doing 20, 30 channels, right? And I know for me, I only graze HD channels, right? So now we have the chance in some markets with the WNBA and some markets with the D-League to have people with that clicker in their hand looking for HD sports and finding our sport, right? Whereas obviously on the internet, I think the consideration set for visiting websites has actually shrunk, right? Now we're down to Facebook, ESPN, CNN, it's shrinking all the time. So what we did this year is we said, we're gonna take advantage of everything that the HD TriCaster can do for broadcast, and we're gonna go out and find new fans, and it's been working.
And for us, we were able to use video to find sort of what we think is a creative solution to a very specific problem. For the last 20 years, coaches have been using magazines, media guides, to try to help recruit student athletes, send out the books, have a bunch of pictures in it, talk about their programs, and try to attract the the high school player into becoming the college player at your university by trying to showcase certain elements of that university or the program or the coach and their accomplishments. A year ago, the NCAA, citing green initiatives and trying to move toward cost containment for all of us, on the university and college level, said no more books. You guys have to come up with online solutions. So some schools have gone to PDFs, but then it's hard to imagine, a 17 or 18-year-old kid scrolling through for 3 hours, pages and pages of PDFs. Some schools have moved toward kind of like animated PDFs where like the pages flip, and that's really interesting. But what we've been able to do is we turned the book, we took each section, and we made about a 1-minute video. So you get to meet the coach, the actual coach that you're going to play for 1 minute. You get to meet the coaching staff. You get to meet who's going to be your strength coach, who's going to be your athletic trainer, who's going to be your academic support person. You get to actually take a 1-minute video tour of campus. And this is, again, not just basketball, but every single sport at St. John's. You're able to watch that for it takes about 15 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes to get through the entire site. You get a pretty good snapshot of what your life may be like as a student athlete at St. John's, and you don't have to really read that much. You can just kind of watch the video. You hear from the athletes, they take you on the tours. You hear from the coaches, the people that you'll actually be working with. So it's not as intensive as reading, and it's still kind of you know, still kind of the message resonates, and you can imagine, you know, a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid actually being interested in taking the 10 minutes to check out the video versus, you know, paging through pages and pages of PDF, or, you know, being amused for 4 seconds on the flippy PDF. But
Right.
you know, the video is better.
Now, Leo, you mentioned that, and Adam, you echoed it, that, you know, when you've got 14, 15 people, you know, by committee trying to influence the content, and when you're generating content for television through broadcast, it's almost like there's this wall between you and your audience. That's just the way it is. And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about online being more of a lean-forward, interactive medium. And even though, obviously, with the TriCaster and with online video, more and more of that video is ending up on HD TV screens, there's still something about the PC, the laptop, the mobile device that I think allows viewers and readers to become, and you know, some of us still do read, but I'm a magazine editor, I had to say that. But
you're not 17 or 18.
That's true too.
Or a future blue chip basketball player or football player.
No, not since I blew the knee out. But you know, it's a more intimate relationship with the content and the people delivering it. Like I would imagine that 16 or 17-year-old basketball player, you know, there's more of a relationship watching another basketball player talk about St. John's than just looking at dry text on paper. How important is it for people creating online content to keep that in mind when they're creating it, that this is something that needs to engage the viewer in a different way than traditional television does?
Well, I mean, that's perfect because both Phil and Mark are basically speaking the idiom of their audience. You need to kind of break through to the new audience that speaks a whole different language nowadays. I think it's interesting because Ace and I are kind of coming from the other angle where we're old mainstream broadcasters who kind of got thrown out in the curb and have found out that, in fact, this is a better idiom for us anyway. It's a way we can speak directly to an audience and communicate with them directly. Basically, it all comes down to you're exactly right. This is what the audience wants. This is what they're looking for. It's a way to interact with them in a much more direct way. You know, and for me, the thing that makes it most interesting, and one of the reasons the TriCaster is important in our workflow, is because it gets out of the way, and we can really create and do what we need to do. It's not merely 22 people that aren't there, but the technology is easy to work with and is out of the way. We've got, you know, we're here streaming 6 hours every day from NAB, and I've got an intern running the TriCaster. He had about an hour worth of training, and he's doing a great job. It's funny because he got the 850. He was trained on the broadcast. He said, "Boy, this does a lot more. I can't wait to get in. I won't do it now, boss, but I can't wait to get into it." They're excited. The younger guys, especially, are very excited by the opportunities this presents. You know.
I got to tell you something sad. I'm not a tech guy, but I like cars. And I was sitting backstage, and someone was telling Leo, "We're going to get you into one of those 850s." And I thought he was talking about a BMW. And I was like, "Son of a bitch. I got to get in one of those flagships. It's a V12. Now I'm relieved."
This is so much cooler.
Okay.
You don't need this.
Just turns out they're filming a ficus tree grow out in the lobby. Who gives a shit? But it is 6 hours. The point is, the thing that's interesting about the content is, you know, TV has sped up and the interviews have sped up, and if you do a late night show, if you're going to do a segment on a late night show, you got about 7 minutes and it's all pre-produced and you have to spit the jokes out rapid fire, and you don't feel at the end like you really know any more about that person other than they did either a good job or a poor job of spitting out their pre-produced segment. And so the thing that's interesting about it's sort of it flies in the face of it's counterintuitive, and that here we are in the vanguard of technology, but we're trying to get back to something that's as old as you know, Grecian times when people told stories, which is slow it down, get a little more intimate, one-on-one. Get to the bottom of this person. I recently did an interview with Sammy Hagar, and people said to me, "I don't even like Sammy Hagar, but I love that interview. I didn't know that side of him. I didn't know that he was this guy. I didn't know about his past." And it's like, because You'll never see that on television today or in radio today because the metronome is slapping away like a playing card in the spokes of a wheel of a kid's bike. It is so fast now. So it's always interesting to me that we've taken this new technology and used it to get back to the oldest form of communication, which is really just this, letting it breathe and having a discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, white people.
Yeah.
Not going to find any new recruits out in this crowd. I'll tell you that right now.
You know, to follow up, Leo, about your interns, so we bring the operators, you know, the TriCaster operators into the studio, and we do a training session, you know, every year. So I've got 15 really well-trained people out there, and they're very aggressive. In fact, they even call us up and have us flip files to them via Vespera so they can have stuff for their openings, you know? So they can cut their openings and their intros because they want to try to make their show better than the other show because they're watching, they're competing. So I was saying to Philip that we really should start we did this when, for different versions of Chiron as they came out, or different kind of exotic pieces of sports gear as they came out. We should really start a national list of operators, you know, of people that are ready to go, that they know they're trained on the equipment, so that we can you know, kind of up the level of what we're doing across the board.
Now, Leo, you talked about you know, being able to use the TriCaster and essentially generate revenue that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Again, and for everyone here, of course, sooner or later it comes back to the bottom line. How difficult is it? And I guess I'd like to ask each of you your monetization story. And I'd like to start with Mark, because with the video you're doing on St. John's, you've got this all-access pass that is a pretty neat way to generate a chunk of revenue.
Well, and it is, and we use the TriCaster in so many different ways. Certainly the live platform we call Storm Tracker All Access. A couple of years ago, St. John's became the Red Storm, and we we do more than 100 live events on campus. It's everything from the basketball games that aren't on TV, the men's basketball games, you know, down through, talk about veering off the road into a ditch. We did 6 hours of fencing.
Wow.
And that's going off the ditch with the whole...
Here's how you know fencing is boring. You would rather watch guys actually put up fencing. That would be more exciting. Visually, it would be more compelling to see guys put up dog-eared redwood 1x6s than actually watch guys fence.
Well, I had to looking at the traffic report and stuff like that made us think about it. Was swords. We thought, you know, swords would appeal somehow.
Got to be candelabra involved. I keep telling you.
Maybe we'll do like a set or something next year.
Can I say, what is it, the Red Storm? That sounds like a euphemism for your wife's period, by the way. I got to say, like, how'd the vacation go? The Red Storm blew in, so
we'll get
nothing.
We'll get our graphic designers on a logo for
and
that.
Flown, the Red Storm moved in, and let's just say I was watching a little U-porn.
There's a whole bunch of new metaphors we can use for our press release. We'll get our logo designer on that right away, too. That's really creative. So this is about money again?
Yeah.
So all of our live stuff we charge for, and if you're a parent or a friend or a family member or a high school teammate of an athlete, you know, you get a chance, and you live in California, and your daughter's playing softball now in Queens, New York. You know, your chances are you're not going to be able to make every single one of her games. So, you know, you do have the opportunity to catch every single one for, you know, $10 a month or $80 for the year or something like that. And we do use kind of like an addiction model. All of our on-demand stuff is free. We kind of show off what we can do. We kind of try to get our people hooked a little bit, and then they come back and maybe pay for the live stuff. And you know, but all of it, I mean, it's really about engagement. It's really about involvement. It's really about kind of getting exposure, even to the fencers or the people that put up fencing or the people that fight with swords. That, you know, they're not going to be able to get on ESPN to do their thing, you know, to do what they're best at. But, you know, in this way, through our website, you know, we can do that, and we can give them good publicity, and then we can make a little money too on the live events as well, except for the fencing.
Adam, talk about your. You said when you started with the podcast, you weren't making any money, right?
No, it was costing me, $8,000 or $10,000 a month in bandwidth. So I had no idea it was going to cost money. I was like, how much are we going to make? And someone was like, bad news, boss. It's going to cost you $100 grand a year to do this. Like, wow, it's an awesome business model. Let's hope we can grow this. Eventually, I'll be spending $1 million. You know, people say all the time, how does this work? How do you monetize this? How's the podcast work? And I always say, look, whether you have a radio station or a TV station or you own a dirigible, eyeballs and ears, that's about it. I mean, whether it's leaflets on the windshield of a car over at the IKEA, or they're listening to the podcast or watching the streaming video via the TriCaster, it's just how many eyeballs and how many ears can you get on your product? If you can get enough ears and eyeballs on your product, then you can start charging for advertising. If you can't, you can't. And it could be smoke signals, it could be tiki drums. It's not about the technology. It's really about how big a crowd can you draw. I mean, it's not much different than you going down to Venice Beach and opening your guitar case and doing some juggling. If you got two people standing in front of you, you're going to get $1.75 in your guitar case. And if you can get a nice crowd gathered, then you're going to walk away with enough money to buy plenty of cocaine that night. Because let's face it, those people are drug addicts. But the point is this. The technology is new. The theorem is old. The technology is brand new, but the way you get money is old. Is the first guy, you know, is Al Jolson getting up on stage. It's how big a theater can you pack? Now it's a virtual theater, and people are at home and they're not at a theater. But it's really how many people can you get, and any piece of technology that helps you gather more ears or eyeballs, well, then that's that much more that you can make.
Well, this isn't a specific TriCaster or video production related question, but to follow on that, you know, for people coming from the broadcast world, you know, it seems like the kind of numbers that people are, that even hugely successful properties are getting online are kind of a wake-up call. Because obviously they're perhaps smaller than you might get with broadcast radio or television, but the numbers you get are so much more accurate and so much more meaningful than the Arbitron ratings or the Nielsen ratings. I was talking to your I believe it's your producer Donnie about, you know, the fact that, you know, suddenly you deliver numbers to a potential advertiser and they're not inflated numbers. They're real numbers representing real people, and you can obviously drill down into the demographics and find out exactly who you're reaching. Do you find that having that sort of ability to get those granular numbers, does that help you monetize the product? Does that help you sell the product or not?
I think it's actually more challenging than that, because it's a new medium, and so you're really fighting against conservative agencies that don't understand it or don't get it or don't know if it'll work. We get, it's funny, a lot of our buys are experimental buys initially. Part for two reasons. One, because they're only a few $100,000, and for a lot of agencies that's not, it's barely worth, you know, getting out of bed to write the check. But an experimental buy, okay, they can spend that kind of money. I think they do come back afterwards, though. They do research to validate the numbers. You know, it is, I would actually disagree a little bit with Adam in the sense that eyeballs aren't eyeballs. There are different kinds of eyeballs, and at least in our business, we're getting a much more engaged audience. They're a smaller audience, but they're much more part of our community, and so they're much more responsive to the advertising. So it isn't a loosely engaged audience that might be watching network television. The St. John's booster that's watching a St. John's broadcast cares enough to pay $10 every month because they're really invested in that. Somebody who listens to Adam actually does a lot of work to listen to Adam because they got to go to iTunes and figure out how that works and download it, or they got to figure out how to get it on the web. They're very engaged, and that the kind of energy that an audience brings to watching Adam, they bring to buying the product. So we only do one ad every half hour. We charge a premium for those ads, and we get those buys from big companies like Ford and GE, partly initially because, you know, Ford says, well, we want to be seen as hip and with it and new media, but then They say, but actually it's working. We like it. It works, and they come back. So I think this is an opportunity to slice the pie in a different way, because you can bring costs down, reach a smaller niche audience, but get a much more engaged small audience, and that's pretty powerful. I think it's extremely powerful.
Leo's right when he says I'm wrong. It's true. It's a much more engaged audience.
Well, you know it because you get it. You get the feedback and the.
No, it's true when you tell this group who's much less passive than you would be if you're just watching channel surfing television. When you do this sort of call to action, you know, go to ProFlower's website and hit them up. Yeah. You have a much higher batting average than a television show would go. But to be fair to me, you know, when it comes to advertisers, because they're, you know, that sort of we're few but we're proud doesn't always fly in the face of that. You know, that's not always something that they're eager to embrace. They want to hear, you know, 1 million downloads a week, or, you know, 200,000 downloads a day. You know, there is a sort of bottom line. You saying, well, we got a handful of people, but they're cool.
It does have to be more than a handful. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to hear we have millions and you know. So there's a balance, and they do see when they do the test buys and they see the reaction in terms of the batting average and the call to action. They're very impressed by how much higher the percentage is between a show like Leo's and a show that might be on network television, and just how much better he does with quite possibly fewer people. But ultimately, because these guys are still Madison Avenue, and because they're still sort of rooted in their old ways,
it's conservative,
and it's going to be their kids that are hip to this, but they're still dying out slowly. They want to hear these big multi-million numbers.
And remember, they're agencies, so they make a cut of the size of the check they write. So they want to write big checks. They don't like writing $100,000 checks. So we need to charge more, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So Adam, you gave me an opening to quote my big numbers. So we're at 1.7 billion streams of video right now for NBA highlights.
That's amazing.
So with partners around the world, so what we do is we use, domestically, obviously, it's all sold by NBA Digital Turner. They do a great job. But then we have Smart Clip in Europe, you know, very fine advertising agency, represents us. We have Sina in China. We're starting to form alliances with websites where we'll actually park our official site, you know, with their basketball site, and then the video drives the consumers. So we're starting to figure out the digital landscape and how to convert, you know, the pre-rolls, you know, which are so valuable to advertisers today, you know, into money. So our digital strategy is working, and of course, hand in hand with what everybody else does in this panel as well is social media. So we've been driving at social media. So we're up to 66 million likes, you know, of you know on a global basis, and what we try and do is we take that audience, and we have an app actually that we're getting ready to deploy just the next couple of days, where we try to, what we say is, Facebook lets us know where they live, where they are. We turn that into a customized television schedule for them. So they know exactly where to watch the NBA, whether broadband, cable, or satellite, you know. So it's kind of a nice, gentle way of monetizing the audience and connecting them with the NBA, the WNBA, and the D-League at the same time.
Right. Gonna move on.
By the way, that's the difference between the NBA and a twit. Just want you to know. They missed the beginning of that, but that is the difference right there. I mean, that's a huge number, and that's a real number. What's great is that people like Adam and I can also coexist in that space, you know.
Right, we're going to move on to question and answers from the audience in just a few minutes. But before we do, I'd like to ask each of you, you know, in your dreams about online video of the future, what do you want to be doing a year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, with your online video that you can't do now? Thought I'd throw you a curveball at the end.
That's not being done now.
Right.
Well, you know, I just think evolution. I mean, think about where you were 2 years ago. Think about where you were 5 years ago, which is nothing. And where do you want to be? I mean, the idea is to constantly evolve. Just the idea of the whole visual end of this thing was a pipe dream for us a year ago. Now it's become a reality thanks to TriCaster. So I think ultimately what we're all striving for is to compete with the networks or compete with whoever the man is, essentially, with, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to offend you.
That's the man.
They're usually younger women of color. I rarely see a gent. So sorry. I didn't. But I mean, I think ultimately what you're striving for no matter what your business is to not have people go, oh, this is the big budget version. And then there's, look, if you're making horror movies, the idea is not to see ketchup packets and bad CGI and all that kind of stuff. So the whole deal is can we do what a big budget studio can do with a horror movie on a shoestring budget and not have people be let down when they see our product? That'll be the day it gets really interesting, because right now, let's face it, when you turn on The Tonight Show, there's a chasm between what we're doing and what they have a band with 16 pieces in it and a 300-person audience and so on and so forth. But what we should all be striving for, and again, it doesn't matter whether you're doing a late night show or whether you're doing a St. John's fencing championship, and I like the cyclone fencing myself, but that's me. The point is, can we be on the same playing field, and yet can we be doing it on our own terms and from something the size of a briefcase and at our own facilities, and not dealing with buildings and guys with corner offices and bad suits with horrible ideas? To me, just getting up to that and then letting, may the best man win, that is what we're all here for, ultimately.
Mark? I think Adam hit the nail on the head right there. I think we're all just, we're trying to just increase the sophistication of the video product that we're kind of putting out there. The University of Texas, is part of its deal to keep its league together and stuff, was encouraged to go ahead and build their own network, their own television network, just for Texas athletics. A school like ours and, the 2,000 other schools out there across America, they're not going to get a television network. So, the idea is to keep developing an online version of that sort of television network for each one, for your school. And, in doing that, the revenue is nice that it brings in, and the numbers and the advertising and stuff like that's nice also. There is a communications and PR function there that, gives exposure to student athletes that wouldn't get it, and really, you're able to generate some excitement about those programs, which then, helps people get excited and involved in your teams and your athletes, and then hopefully go out and buy sweatshirts and tickets and make donations. I like Leo's guy, the guy watching the softball game is going to write the big check because, maybe he's, inspired or, excited about something that goes on there. So I think, just in terms of trying to keep the product moving forward, trying to catch, whatever, trying to catch ESPN for us, or trying to catch the University of Texas's network, and keep developing that kind of interesting content that gets people involved, gets people excited about your school, and then kind of subtly calls them to action to do bigger things.
I'd say synchronous experiences on the web. So you're watching the game in HD, and there's lots of stats that we get that when people watch HD, they really don't want a lot of graphics. They just want to believe they're at the game. They want to immerse themselves in it. Which is what I like to do too. So, but I also like to have my iPad or, with me, so I can check the stats, check things, go a little deeper. For sports, I'd like to be able to pick some alternate angles, just have that experience, be able to extend my experience. Because I really think, it's really not about interactive TV. It's a little bit of an oxymoron, interactive TV. You want your interaction on your computer. And I think we're going to have more screens in our living rooms. You're gonna have a couple screens, and you're gonna be doing different things on them, and you want to extend your experience. So I'm looking forward to developing those kinds of experiences into the future.
One thing we know, for sure, is that technology will get faster, better, cheaper, smaller, and I'm most interested in seeing the technology get out of the way. because what we do, and it's interesting that what you said, because what we do is also get out of the way and give the viewer a personal experience. It's our goal and what we do to have the viewer feel like they're sitting there with us on the set. It's like watching the game, like you're courtside. In our case, we're having a conversation. We want them to feel like they're the fifth person in the conversation. And as technology gets better, the ability to not only give them that experience, but have it be more real, more personal. They're more involved. It is more two-way. It is more interactive. That's what excites me. I mean, I really envision us becoming a 24-hour network of people sitting around talking about interesting things to our particular niche audience, and they feel like they're a part of it, and they can interact with it. They can ask questions. They can be there. I think technology is very close to making that possible. We're really moving. You see the show floor today. The cost, the size, everything is moving incredibly rapidly in that direction.
Absolutely. Great way to sum it up and move on to the Q&A period. I believe Philip's got a microphone.
Check. Hell, so unfortunately, Adam has to be whisked away by limo to the airport so that he can catch a plane.
I'm not comfortable with speaking off script, so it's really just a cheap excuse. I'll be cowering in my hotel room.
So Adam, we appreciate you being here, but we're going to do a Q&A. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you.
This is the VIP treatment. He's getting VIP, baby. Thank you for being here, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, so let's do a Q&A. If you have some questions for our Broadcast Minds panelists, raise your hand. We're going to take just a few minutes. We have a question right here in front. All right. Let us know who your question's for. And
I would address this to any member of the panel, perhaps Mr. Laporte, but do you see a parallel from the original three alphabet broadcast networks with their huge amount of capital involved, the shift from that to broadcasts or from cable satellite and the more narrow audiences, History Channel, MTV, Weather Channel, that sort of thing. Now we're going to internet television, internet delivered video, but with a worldwide footprint rather than just a nationwide footprint, and what the capabilities are with a less capital expenditure now that we can broadcast to the world with a more narrow type of audience focus.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think the three initial networks or the three initial sports franchises are going to go away. I mean, there's a lot of room for expensive movies and Major League Sports that a little guy, I couldn't field an NBA team because it is capital intensive. But what this technology does is it democratizes what has been in the past the province of people who had a lot of money. You couldn't start a TV station, a radio station. You couldn't be a book publisher. You couldn't write a book without the help of somebody who had a lot of money, who owned the presses. So the fact that the cost of doing this is getting less and less expensive, that the distribution medium is global and virtually free, is transformational, I think. It changes everything about media. It changes what we call media. If everybody is in the media, who is the media? You know, Jerry Purnell, the Byte columnist, went to CES this year. He's an old school journalist. He said, I don't like it because everybody is a journalist there and they're all blogging and reporting. He said, what's left for me? I think that's exciting. I love Jerry, but I think that's very exciting. And I think his unique voice, in fact, is doing very well with his own blog on his own website. I think this is a great opportunity for everybody.
Anyone else on the panel would like to comment on that? Steve, Mark? Or do we have another question from the crowd? We'll take someone from the back. Let's get back here and yes, sir. What's your question and who is it for?
It's for Steve. I'm the director of audio video for the TD Garden in Boston. I've been doing the Celtics for many years. And wondering if you ever envision and how far down the road that for home and visitor broadcast, not national broadcast, that potentially we might be able to, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, not be able to pull up TV trucks and be able to do a lot of these broadcasts really in-house.
I was going to say that was TriCaster. I started my career at NBC Sports in 1978. So TriCaster is a revolution in the sense that, with a $40,000 device, you have replaced an $8 million mobile unit. I mean, it's an enormous shift of great magnitude, and The surprising thing is that New Tech's out there on their own. There's no competitor to New Tech here at the show that I know of. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I think it's a huge step forward, and I agree. I used to think that the mobile units will always stay the same. They're never going to change. The mobile units are going to be a mobile unit. There'll be the 3 decks, you know, producer, director up front. It'll always be that way. I don't believe that anymore, you know. In fact, we were theorizing over the weekend at a retreat that I do with the sports video group that perhaps we will just go to IP cameras, right? So in other words, we won't even bother with all the standards and all the conversions. It'll just be IP throughout the entire system at some point. I think that'll probably be the next big move. You know, that's 3, 4, 5 years on the horizon, but why not IP transport everywhere? You know, why bother with all the codecs and all the expense associated with them? So I think that might be the move that will tip it, you know, and fully integrate, you know, what you do in arena, you know, at Boston, you know, with the telecast, you know, and have it become one, you know, kind of one total broadcast, one total experience.
Steve, do you look at what you're doing with the WNBA and the D League and what colleges and universities are doing as kind of like a guinea pig or petri dish for maybe that someday?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think there's just absolutely no way that these colleges and universities, certainly the D League, would be on the air without a device like the TriCaster. And the important thing is now it's HD, because I don't think people watch SD Sports. The only way you watch SD Sports is if you have a great affinity for that team. Otherwise, you're searching out the HD. Yeah, right. I mean, when you graze your channels at home at night, you're searching for HD at this point.
With that answer, Steve has officially become my hero. No. All right, do we have another question? I saw a question right here, and then we'll grab one more from the back. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Grant from Melbourne, Australia. I just wanted to ask about engagement of the audience. It'd be interesting hearing from the sport as well as Mr. Laporte. I know that doing chat, live chat with the audience is really key. One difference I think with Twit is that audience knows how to do chat. They know IRC, you know, they know how to do it.
We're just cutting edge because we speak to technologists, so they're ahead of the, but I think it's no doubt at all that that's going to be a global ability. I mean, the kids growing up with it today are completely comfortable with it, right?
No, I think that in fact, you could probably take the tweets, take Twitter, right, and index NBA games very successfully.
Yeah.
You'd probably be able to log them. You know, I probably wouldn't even have to hire loggers to get it done, because of the volume of Twitter that surrounds, that surrounds Kobe, you know, and what he does, and the people that are following him, that are following his activity on the court. So it's something that we're actually studying at the league to see if there's a way that we can kind of integrate social media not only into the live event, you know, to get people talking back and forth to each other, but what do we do with it after the event, you know? And what we found often too is that there's often great spikes associated with the social media on advertisements, right? A crazy new ad will get a big spike, you know, in terms of the number of tweets associated with it. But there's actually some tools on Google now and other tools and we're observing this and trying to figure out, you know, what to do with it.
And we look at video, whether our games are being streamed by us ourselves, or whether it's games on CBS or ESPN or whatever. We use it as one part of what we call wraparound coverage for all of our events. So the game's on TV, or we're streaming the game, but at the same time we're providing live stats. We're either doing live blogging, like with Cover It Live, there's the program like that, I'm sure there's many like that, or with Twitter, where people can direct questions at the team's main account, or be part of a conversation using a hashtag. We're posting Facebook photos and mini Facebook videos throughout the game, and then after the game you have the written recap, you have the video recap with interviews from the press conference with the coach and the athletes and all that stuff. You have people that are tweeting about it still. You have a photo gallery for the people that want to go through, and the photos are all sellable and stuff like that too. So if we can kind of hit all those things, if we can hit the written, if we can hit the photo gallery, if we can hit the social media with Facebook and Twitter, and we can hit the video, we call it hitting for the cycle. First, second, third, and home.
And Mark, I think you were the first person to credential a Twitter guy, weren't you, at St. John's?
we were, and we found a guy when we were starting our Twitter account for St. John's basketball. We were like a month in, and we had like 300 or 400 followers, and then I found somebody in our marketplace in New York City that was really into college basketball and somehow had 46,000 followers. So I said, it'll take me years and probably a lot of time to try to develop a following like that. So what we did was we took a press pass. We, interviewed the guy and kind of like, made sure he could
Make
leap
sure he
over
wasn't
certain.
psycho.
Exactly, exactly. Make sure he was a relatively normal guy, which he was very normal. And we put the press pass around his neck, and just like that, we incorporated another 50,000 Twitter followers for every single one of our games, which helped move the conversation along, and is very complimentary to, again, the written accounts, the live stats, the Facebook coverage, the written coverage, and whatever platform we're broadcasting on, whether it's TV or whatever. And the Knicks liked that idea so much, they stole him from me. They made him a full-time employee, and now he runs the New York Knicks social media efforts. But wow. I can't blame him. If anybody's got 50,000 or so Twitter followers and wants to work at St. John's, wow. We'll feed you. We have good pregame meals, and we have the taco bar, very big in the Big East Conference, the taco bar. And we'll put a credential around your neck, and if you can keep it straight, it's not a bad way to go. And I think I've seen it pop up across the college and university landscape that more people are trying to roll that in. And if you can find somebody that's the right thing for you, I mean, that's fantastic.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. We'll take one from the back. I don't know which guy I'm going to pick. He had his hand up with more emphasis. He looked more serious, so I'm sorry, dude. You got sold out.
I've been in television a long time. I know about emphasis. Leo, longtime fan, loved Tech TV back in the day. And I'm sitting here thinking about your show now against the two sports things, where the paradigm is different in that those guys take the TriCaster and cover somebody else's event. Well, I mean, it's their own event, but it's a basketball game, basically. Whereas what you're doing with it is doing a talk show in your cottage, which I understand is getting bigger. You're getting a new studio?
Yeah.
Any chance you might want to go to the apex of what Tech TV had, and that was screensavers, and have an actual produced show where you do things like They Might Be Giants on one section,
right.
Review a computer the next section, talk to somebody
well,
in New York the next section?
The challenge, of course, is that that's a very expensive thing to do. We had many producers, we had a lot of staff, but that's one of the reasons we are moving to a 10,000 square foot studio, and we are building a set. I hired the screensaver set designer to build the new set. I don't know if I would hesitate to say that the goal would be to rebuild Tech TV, because the model of Tech TV really didn't work. That's why Tech TV doesn't exist. It was a cable channel that was spending $50 to $100 million a year. A lot of that money was to get distribution, was going to cable companies so that they would carry the channel, but a lot of it was production. It was very, very expensive, and there wasn't enough advertising support, listener support, viewer support to pay for it. So Paul Allen lost hundreds of millions of dollars and threw in the towel. So we have to be a little smarter than that. I mean, I truthfully think what we're trying to do is not recreate Tech TV, but reinvent Tech TV in a new era. I really, thinking about the most difficult challenge for us is similar to the challenge that they have, which is how do you create a channel with a large audience that is fully interactive, that the audience feels like they're a part of the channel, that they're not sitting watching an event, but they're actually in the event and part of the event, and managing a social media, managing a chat room. I wish there were a TriCaster for interactivity, a way that I could easily, somehow integrate what's going on out there into what's going on in here. And that would be very different than Tech TV. Tech TV was a very traditional television show. I want to bring those elements back, absolutely. We will bring those elements back. I mean, we'll have a lot of that, but I want to take the next step, which is to make it a fully interactive event. That's why we're live, so that you can be part of it. And I think it's in many ways that's what these guys are trying to solve with social media. They're trying to incorporate the audience back into the programming. It's a great challenge. It's very interesting, and I think the audience wants it now. I think that we're no longer willing to sit and watch a performance. We want to be part of the play. And so how do we do that is actually the next big challenge for everybody.
Well, I just want to thank the panelists. We are honored to have such heavy hitters sitting here on this stage. Let's give a round of applause. Leo Laporte, Steve Helmuth, Mark Fratto, and the missing Adam Conrola. I also want to thank you guys for coming out, spending some time with us here at NAB, and we do appreciate you being here with us tonight, and we plan on seeing you here next year for the 3rd Broadcast Minds event. I don't know how we're going to top this, but we're going to have to figure out a way. So thank you guys, good night, and thanks for being here. Leo, you rock. Steve,
whole new web world is allowing this whole new creativity to happen. You know, there's always been creative people and maybe they just haven't had a chance and the tools to do it. The TriCaster gives you the tools to be as creative as you want.
It's not a webcam on your computer. This is a really powerful tool with HD quality video.
There's stations in town where you see they've got their little rinky-dink camera setups and there's bad audio, it doesn't look good, and they're not switching from different camera views like you have with TriCaster. You've got something professional like that, it makes all the difference in the world.
If it wasn't for the TriCaster, the students that we have working at the university and going to school here and graduating from here wouldn't have the skills needed in today's market and in future markets, whatever they may be.
You don't have to have this big fancy switcher to learn how to do live cuts and live transitions, live effects. I mean, it can all be done on the TriCaster.
Yamaha decided to adopt live streaming as a way to take events and really take whatever investment, time, and energy we spend in that particular event and take that to the masses. And it was very clear from the start that really NewTek and the TriCaster was the way to go.
There's just so much expandability and customization that you can do with the TCXD 850. It's just awesome.
We're building a 24/7 broadcast studio, 20 cameras, hundreds of light fixtures, a TriCaster 850, and because it's so affordable, we can do the same kind of coverage better for a fraction of the cost. It makes us financially viable.
I'm only in the web streaming business because of NewTek and the TriCaster technology. Nothing else exists as far as I'm concerned.
And we are live and in the house. We can prove it. Go to video.
TriCaster has allowed us to expand our listener experience, taking something that is just an audible thing and turning it into something that's video and audio, and it really makes us look like a professional television show.
We're radio people. There's a reason you shouldn't see it. For me, at least.
A lot of companies are still doing a lot of print or a lot of event sponsorship. For us, video content is the core of our marketing campaign. So by having a sick piece of gear like the TriCaster gives us the opportunity to treat guitar enthusiasts around the world to a really great time. So at the end of the day, it's a crucial part of our production.
The TriCaster is easy enough to use that students have been able to come in. It's very user friendly, and now it's actually allowed us to add into it a live show, which we could not have done before without it.
People are expecting quality now. They used to be a little more forgiving, but now it's like, wait, I want to see it in high quality. And if it weren't for the TriCaster, I don't know how else we'd be doing this.
From Corolla One Studios in Glendale, California, and streaming live on Ustream, thanks to NewTek's TriCaster. This is the Adam Carolla Show.
When we started Adam's podcast, the success was absolutely amazing to us. So when we wanted to start producing video, the TriCaster just seemed like the right answer for us.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but to get it on. Mandate, get it on.
At the price you pay for something like this and what it does, it is absolutely magical.